Good evening, or rather, good morning. It's midnight here in London on a Monday, so there's work tomorrow. Yeah, the Christmas holiday is well and truly over, and even though I never actually took time off, it still kind of sucks. Anyway, hopefully this is going to be a good pick me up for you, because now I am going to a new part of, or a kind of expected part of my channel, the recaps of TV shows. As mentioned, if this is something that you like, if you like my voice, if you like the analysis I'm about to do, looking at my previous content, please press that subscribe button, share, join me in my commentary. I want to hear from you. I want to build up the community. And yeah, let's get into heated rivalry. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I hope so. Let me pick up my mic and put it near my mouth and assume that you can't. So yeah, on my channel, we like to make complex topics simple. And I started watching Heated Rivalry, as I told you guys. And I have to say, it was not what I expected. I'll be honest, the way the setup looks, pretty boy, actors, Canadian show, there is some book talk interference in there. I kind of thought this was going to be some corny nonsense. I thought it was going to be like The Summer I Turned Pretty, or some of these Amazon low budget, difficult to follow, young people romance that I kind of thought, okay, I'm not going to watch this nonsense. But then when I saw the amount of engagement online and the way some of the clips, my interest was piqued. So I thought, let me watch it. I am not going to discuss with you how I was able to watch a Canadian show on HBO Max in the UK, but I heard it is coming to the UK early January, and yeah, I'm sure a lot of British people will have a lot to say when they see it streaming on their platforms. But I found it very... It was not the best thing I've ever watched, I'll be honest with you. I don't even think it was the best queer story I've ever seen. That would be Interview with the Vampire, which I just finished, and I am going to recap before season 3 starts. That is a superior show in every way. But that being said, whatever problems I had with the script, the pacing, and the overall story itself was very well mitigated by the fantastic chemistry between the two parties. The two actors who played the main love interest and the other two actors that played the secondary love interest that does drive the story in a different direction. I've always said that a true romance, whether it is male to male, women to women, men and women, I need to feel the chemistry. I need to feel, not just see, feel what you are selling to me. And I will be honest, the show was way more graphic than I thought it was going to be. That actually blew my mind a bit. I was like, that's a lot of but I'll get into it. I'm going to do this playlist episode by episode, and I am going to give it a different type of gaze. I ask you to please be patient with me, because I think this gaze is necessary, and I don't really see a lot of people talking about this type of content. My feedback will always be honest. And like I said, I may not always say what you want to hear. I am a grown adult. I am not a young person watching two hot men do it. I feel like there's a nuance to the story. So if you want to hear from me, let's get into it. So, my neck is wet. I just washed my hair. So the show starts off with Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov. They are teenagers at this stage, and they meet. Oh, actually, Shane introduces himself to Ilya, who is smoking. What I love about Ilya's character is, at first, he's not really, you can't really read him. He comes off as playful, and sarcastic and dry, which I believe was them trying to sell you a typical Russian. Shout out to my Russian listeners and to Russian people generally. You guys have been whacked by Western media. If we specifically followed Western media, and all Russians are curt, they don't laugh, they don't smile, and they are pale. So I have a very, I'm very nervous around Russians, I'll be honest with you, but it's nobody's fault. It's because of how the media has sold you. But I am so glad in my life and in my career, I have met some absolutely warm, genuinely sweet Russian people. So I'm so glad, or rather people from the Balkans that are not as, cold as the way the Western culture would sell it. But for the point of the show, we will focus on that. So Shane, Ilya, you can see here, the one with the curly hair. And Shane, the very pretty Shane. Shane is of Asian and Caucasian descent. I thought he was just Asian, but apparently he's mixed. So that was interesting to find out. The actor himself is mixed. Anyway, his name is Shane Hollander. And like I said, Shane introduces himself to Ilya. And initially, it's kind of like I said, this Ilya cold. It's cold but warm. I can't describe it. It seems like two teenagers just saying hello to each other. And what we then find out is they are going through some sort of summer training session together in preparation for draft. So for those of you who may not follow American sports falls under this umbrella called major leagues, the big leagues. Major league covers basketball, football, and hockey, soccer, and some other sports. I'll be honest, I don't watch hockey. I'm Nigerian. I have zero interest in watching anything on the ice, and I don't know any famous hockey player. I don't. But it's quite interesting that the major leagues follow the same type of concept. You have your summer combine where different teams go to look for potential young talent. They go through a drafting process where they draft the top prospects to specific teams. And yeah, they have a 1-year season. At the end of each season, there's a cup each team is competing for, etc., etc., etc. So sports. So yeah. Anyway, they meet. What I love about, you get to see their personalities. You see them while they're competing. You see them, always looking away and looking at each other. It's kind of cute because you can tell, they have a little crush on each other. It's very subtle, but it's clear that they have some interest. They may not. I think Ilya notices his attraction to Shane first, but Shane, who is probably suppressed or may not know that about himself yet, is fascinated by Ilya. But I think it might also be because right from the bat, the commentators pit them against each other, especially because they are both drafted into teams. Shane goes into the Montreal Metros, and Ilya goes into the Boston Raiders, and these teams are notoriously competitive with each other. So of course, because of the level of competition, when the two top prospects go into these two teams, Shane is drafted second, Ilya is drafted first. The commentators and the media tries to play off this rivalry between the two of them, which is, eye-rolling. They do it in all sports. It's all part of entertainment. Anyway, like I said, you clock Ilya's initial interest in Shane. Something happens. I can't remember. Oh, yes. So basically what happens is they keep staring at each other, and Ilya does make the first move. When they got drafted, I believe Shane was not happy that he was drafted second. Probably feels some way about it because he's quite competitive in this sport. So he goes down to the gym to, burn it off. And this is where I begin to notice the sexual tension. They are both competing with each other. Again, he was drafted first, Ilya. Shane was drafted second. And at this stage, I believe Ilya has clocked his attraction to Shane, but Shane just sees him as competition. So they go hard in the gym, they're on a bike together, and when they are done with the gym, again, I really like how the scene was shot. Like I said, if you're going to sell me a love story, I need to believe the two leads have chemistry, because love is sex. Love is chemistry. right? I don't like when shows tell you that there's chemistry between two actors and you don't see it. You feel like you have to force yourself to see it because they've told you something is happening. No, I need to be able to feel it and see it. And you start to see it from here. Because they're both sweaty and it's attractive, Ilya, in my opinion, makes all the first moves. He comes in, he really crowds into you, and you see this quite a lot until they finally hook up. Ilya really crowds into Shane's space. When they finish working out on the exercise bike, Ilya comes and sits directly opposite him, which is not something typically a straight person will do at the gym, especially somebody that's considered your rival. But anyway, he comes to sit across from him and they're sweating and they're staring at each other's pulses, They're both wearing their sports clothes, so you can see their thighs, their legs, their skin. They're looking into each other's eyes, the lips, the sweat. I can see, again, it's animal, it's raw, it's sex. It's hot, actually. So then Ilya offers Shane his water bottle. Shane takes it and, again, you can feel the chemistry. You can feel that Ilya is scoping Shane out. He wants to see, oh wait, he approached me. Is this real? Was he just being friendly? Is he attracted to me? And I think he gets enough of an answer to know, okay, I'm going to try something more. So that scene ends, and there's some other scenes that kind of gives you the background of Shane and Ilya's family life, because again, they are quite young at the start of the story. Ilya's family is based in Russia. He has a very strict father who has very high expectations of him, who he seems to not be able to please. His father comes off as strict, no nonsense, no tolerance for nonsense or weakness. And you see him, he loves his dad, clearly. And again, any child who is under such an iron hand is always going to feel the pressure being placed on him. His father actually starts ragging him out about, you're not scoring hard enough against a particular team, against this country. And he takes it personally and tries to up his game. So yeah, you see that. And then from Shane's perspective, again, the high expectation of his mom. His mom is his manager. She's the one telling him about all the deals she's organizing for him. She's putting all the expectations on his shoulder, because Shane is one of the very few Asians who gets to get as far as he has in hockey. And that comes with a responsibility. It's visibility, I guess, whether you like it or not. Especially if you're somebody breaking into an area that people like you may not necessarily excel in, people will pay attention. People will look up to you. And everybody puts that expectation on Shane, even the press, and he puts it on himself, I'm sure. So yeah, the two of them are similar in that way. High expectations, very high expectations to family members, and a large weight to also be, rivals on two very popular hockey teams. So it's a lot of pressure. So yeah, that tension is right there following them. So where everything comes to a head is there is a photo shoot they need to do, probably for promotional activities, where they pit the two rivals against each other, Ilya and Shane. I like that scene because how I interpreted that scene was Ilya was having a time because he kept on cracking up and laughing. So I wasn't sure if he was laughing because he was crushing, or he was laughing because he was near his crush, or it was just because of how silly the whole thing is. So what I took from that scene was, yes, there is all this pressure. Yes, there is this need to push the rivalry because of entertainment. But Ilya, as competitive and as sarcastic as he is, it's fun. He's a gay old time. I didn't mean that in the way that came out, but he's serious, but he can be playful. He can be funny. And yeah, I felt like that kind of broke the tension a bit, gave you a view into his personality. And yeah, so they hook up. They do the photo shoot. And after the photo shoot, they talk, because it's just two of them. They talk to each other. So Ilya kind of alluded to the fact that, well, this photo shoot happened with you, Shane, because I asked for it. So that kind of like, oh, okay. Shane is kind of like, wow, okay, you asked for me, that type of thing. He's distracted by it when his mom talks to him. So they get into the showers, and that's when the whole thing becomes very clear. So like I said, the story has been circling around itself here, leaving it up to the viewer to kind of sense the tension, guess the tension, and look at the crush building between the two of them. But this scene, without any doubt, makes it very clear what is going on here. You see Shane, they're both in the showers together, nothing unusual. Their teammates shower together. It's an open shower, it's a communal shower. And Ilya is really checking Shane out. Again, from Shane, you get the impression that he's still trying to figure out what it is about Ilya. He's still trying to read Ilya. I don't think at this stage, I believe the last time he probably felt any real attraction for Ilya was when they were, opposite each other after the exercise. So that tension and that sweat and drinking, sharing a water bottle. But it's not enough in my mind for him probably at this stage to think there's anything there. I think when Ilya starts to check him out, rub his body, and yeah, hopefully you can follow my hand gesture towards Shane. He's not shy about it. He's staring right into Shane's eyes. There is kind of no doubt what is going on here on anybody's mind. Ilya has laid the gauntlet down. I am attracted to you. I really am sexually attracted to you. So it's up to Shane to pick up the gauntlet or reject it. So Shane is kind of taken aback. Probably nobody has ever been that upfront about the attraction to him up until that point. Shane gives off rich kid, sheltered, probably been only specifically sports focused all his life. I'm not saying he hasn't probably had girlfriends. He probably has, but you could tell that it's kind of like a one-track mind. So with this thing that's happened now, when they get back into the changing room, Shane is kind of okay, look, this happened, let's not talk about it again. Ilya is not having it. Ilya is nah. I saw how you were looking at me. It's obvious you're attracted to me, and I want this to be something. So, and I thought this was quite hot, actually. There's a scene where he says, "What's your room number?" And he tells him, and I'm paraphrasing here. He says, Ilya asks him, will you be there? If I come to your room at 9 p.m., can we meet up? So Shane says something along the lines of, if you knock, I might let you in. And Ilya responds with, I might knock. And I was like, ooh, that's hot. That was hot. Anyway, let's get to the next part, then we can end this recap. So yes, now is the big moment. You see Ilya going up to Shane's room. Interestingly, while the lift is going up, you see Shane's mom, who's going down. She's probably just visited with her son and went somewhere else. At that point, I'm not sure if Ilya knows that's Shane's mom. He might. I don't know, because they're on TV. He might, but he's nervous, obviously. He gets to Shane's room and... well, Shane, what I love about Shane in this, up until this, all throughout this episode, you see him trying to bring some sort of order to this situation. You can tell he's the good kid. He's always kept his head above his shoulders. He's never done, he's not the impulsive, irrational type. He likes order, organization. Okay, I'm attracted to you, fine. And even then, that attraction had to literally be forced out of him. Okay, fine, you've brought it out of me now. What comes next? You see him, and you see that, and you see him struggling with that organization. In the room before Ilya comes, he's wearing a suit for some reason, which is ridiculous, and I'm glad he noticed that. Then you see him chilling in front of the TV, trying to keep his cool, but he's nervous. So when Ilya comes into his room, he tries to again insert that, let's talk about it logically, let's discuss what we're going to do here. And Ilya is not here for it. Ilya more or less says, nah, nothing to talk about, and just goes right in and just, ooh, guys, that was hot. I mean, I'm actually getting shivers thinking about it. That was so sexy, my God. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. And I want you to understand that it's not just the idea. And you know what, let me finish the recap. They start kissing, doing a lot. And it was just, that entire scene was just, wow. Kudos to the actors and the intimacy coordinator, because what? That's a lot. That is a lot. And it's one of their Tema scenes, but it was a lot. And I'll be honest with you, what I found really erotic and what was deeply sexy to me wasn't even the sex scene. It was that kiss between the two of them, that initial kiss. Ooh, that was hot. That was so, because like it starts off tentative. So what I love about it again is Ilya has been pushing, but now he's finally got his prize. He's taking, but he's not just taking. He's making it, he's like, in my opinion, I interpreted that first kiss as, I've laid it all on the ground now. I really am attracted to you. I want you. I'm going to give you a chance to meet me here if you are interested. And Shane, you can literally feel Shane swoon into it. You know, everything about this scene was so sexy, my goodness. And now I'm talking about it, it's kind of like, oh my God. I would say that to me was way hotter than any other thing that happened next. What happens next is they get to the bed, they do what men do. It's kind of hard, but if I had to rewatch that again, I would rewatch that kiss. That was the best part of that whole thing. And what comes out of it is Shane obviously enjoyed himself, as did Ilya. And it's kind of like an awakening from, I wouldn't say an awakening from him. You get a lot of confessions from him. Ilya is the first guy he's been with. Probably he's been feeling these things for years and probably just never acted on it or didn't want to deal with it. Now Ilya has forced him to kind of like deal with his feelings, deal with his attraction to Ilya, and maybe even to men in general. So like I said, I loved that scene. Like I could have fast forwarded the whole thing, frankly, and just focused on the kissing scene. But yeah, you get to see his inexperience, but his enthusiasm. Then you get to see Ilya's experience and also enthusiasm. And yeah, they go from there. So this is where it starts. Episode 1 is a bit sad somehow because you begin to see, the thing with Shane, I interpret is, Shane is not afraid. The instant he's told himself and accepted this is something I like, he begins to see Ilya as some sort of, I wouldn't say a relationship or so, but I think it's a hookup, yes, but he's expecting a bit more warmth from Ilya than he gets. And I think that throws him a bit, and you can tell that he's not happy about it. But he settles into the fact that, okay, Ilya is an asshole. We're not going to be buddy-buddy right from the beginning. I wouldn't say he settles into it. He's not happy about it. You can see him, and I was a bit touched at the end because you do see him like hurt when Ilya begins to show him. Ilya is not somebody who can be open about his sexuality because he's Russian, and we know Russia has anti-gay laws, and he has a very strict father who puts all that pressure on him. And some other things you find out about Ilya is he's also the breadwinner of his family. His brother is very nonchalant, and he has to literally pay his brother to take care of his dad. And Ilya does love his dad, despite the fact that his father is hard on him. He does love his father. So it's a very sad thing, I think, for him to deal with. You can understand why his mind is never settled in episode 1, as you begin to understand the complexities of his personal life, his family life, and yeah, how all that could impact his ability to open up to Shane. Shane, on the other hand, despite having a very strict and ambitious mother, has a very loving family. His father is soft. His mother is, but she doesn't push him. Does that make sense? She pushes him, but she's not. He doesn't. I don't think Shane will ever not feel loved. I feel he knows that he is loved by both his parents. So it's kind of like that beautiful difference in their dynamic, which I like, and it does explain the motivations of both characters. I should say something very quickly though. In this episode, you also get to meet one of the secondary love interests. His name is Sean Hunter, right? I think he's Sean. My bad, sorry guys. And he clocks the relationship between, he clocks it. Because while Ilya and Shane were competing at an all-star game, Ilya, as he's passing through Shane, utters, more or less tells him that he's going to be in his hotel room and gives his hotel room number. And I don't think Shane realizes that Sean next to him is probably heard the last part of that conversation. So I think Sean obviously clocks something is happening there. Because the next thing Sean says is, the room that Ilya is in, I'm next to it. You know, I'm paraphrasing here. Why would he say that if he didn't think, he most likely heard Ilya give Shane his room number, and probably wants to kind of warn him that I'm going to be sleeping next door. So maybe to kind of, I believe that was kind of like a warning, a hint that be careful. So again, you get, I jumped over to the end, sorry. Then you get them hooking up again. This time, you can, from the hookup, you can tell, right? The tension there. They both know what, I think for the both of them, is the thrill of doing something wrong, the thrill of doing something forbidden. But they both do not want to get caught. They know what is at stake. This whole thing is happening in the late 2000s, early 2010s. So this is not the gay pride season. There, in major league sports, we are not yet at a place where men can just be out like that and keep their careers. So they know what is at stake, right? So even though they enjoy each other's company and they enjoy having sex with each other and all that stuff, they both know what is at stake. So you can always feel that tension whenever they meet up. It has to be in secret, it has to be private, and it has to be quick. No time for aftercare or even proper foreplay. Everything is urgent, quick. And in this particular scene, why I'll bring it up is, even though it was hot, you get to see that Ilya wants to have anal sex with Shane, and Shane is hesitating. Shane is very much interested, of course, but he's hesitating, and he tells him that, yeah, he would love to, that he has a dildo that he uses. And yeah, they basically agree to it. Because Sean has kind of told him, I'm in the room next door, obviously doing something like that, the headboards will be hitting, they'll be making noise. So he says, let's not do it here. Let's do it next time we meet. And next time they plan to meet in Montreal, which is where Shane actually plays and where he lives. So the plan was they would meet, I think it's Montreal they live. I don't know if he lives there. Anyway, it's Montreal, but his team is based there, so he most likely lives there. So the plan is to meet in Shane's place and do what they want to do. Unfortunately, there's ice and bad weather, so they couldn't go, which is a bummer for the both of them. So yeah, that's how that episode ends. I hope I've not mixed up episode 1 and 2. No, I haven't mixed it up. I haven't. I've not mixed it up. I've given you that very long recap, and that's how I'm going to structure the video. I gave you that long recap so that we can talk about how I want to. So you have the context of the show. You have context of episode 1, and I want to quickly, how I plan on structuring these recaps is to bring a deeper discussion into desire, power, and the African gaze. I am a Nigerian woman, and it's very fascinating to see topics about erotica generally, and how it plays into our Africanness, because within our African culture, we do not promote this type of openness, this type of eroticism, except from the male's perspective, and we certainly do not promote same-sex relationships. So I thought, why don't we talk about that? I've given you a recap of the show. You can clearly tell that I'm enjoying it. You can see that I'm buying the romance and what they are selling. But I wanted to give my perspective as well from that African perspective. So bear with me as I give you a short kind of talk through. So I've made my notes here so that we can keep it quick, right? So in my mind, heated rivalry is not erotic because of sex. I've already said that. A good romance to me is me being able to believe the chemistry. It is erotic because of everything that is not allowed. I mentioned about the secrecy, this is forbidden. It's forbidden not just because it's two men or because they are both rivals, but or the fact that they are both playing for different teams, or the fact that major league sports, especially from a male perspective, is very masculine and homosexuality is not seen as masculine. I think what makes it so good, guys, is the yearning, the wanting, the illegalness of it all. The desire hidden behind competition, which is why I like the sports, the interplay of them being in the gym, sweating, competing against each other, and the sex is beautiful. The intimacy that pretends to be rivalry, and I thought that was a very good one. And I think why it relates to me as an African is because growing up as a Nigerian, I understand that very well. So let me talk quickly about rivalry as intimacy. Rivalry forces proximity. These are my notes. You don't get to ignore someone you are competing with. You study them. You anticipate them. You react to them. In heated rivalry, competition becomes the only socially acceptable way these two men can orbit each other. Anger becomes permission. Aggression becomes contact. And I have some good examples of that. Conflict becomes closeness. And that's where the intimacy lives. Because rivalry without affection allows what affection cannot. Does that make sense? So these two men cannot walk hand in hand. They can't publicly kiss each other, touch each other, even be together. So this competition that society has created for them is the only way they can make it make sense for them to look into each other's eyes, to be around each other, to be around, to even stand next to each other. Through that rivalry, that competition is the way they can express their desire, their need, their want. It's hard. And from an African perspective, desire is not something you announce. And I am not even referring to the absolute same-sex relationships are not even allowed, as in I'm not even speaking about that. But if a woman in a heterosexual or a seemingly heterosexual relationship decides to be open with her sexuality, she's labeled. She's called a whore. She's called loose. It's your outward displays of desire, especially from a woman's perspective, is frowned upon. It's not even allowed. It is something you manage. You are taught restraint early, taught to perform respectability, taught that masculinity is something to be watched, measured, and judged. So longing becomes coded, affection becomes indirect, and closeness often hides something else. Competition, duty, achievement. Nigerians compete against each other. Nigerians like to show off all their degrees and all their big jobs. We like to achieve something. That is our way of existing. And I think it's something that heated rivalry understands very instinctively, and it probably brought out of me. The story doesn't rush confession. You won't see anybody confessing to anything in this episode. It lets desire live unsaid. And it feels very, very familiar with people who had to grow up where silence is survival in an African setting. Now let's talk about why the secrecy of the relationship intensifies desire. Secrecy doesn't weaken desire, by the way, it intensifies it. When something must be hidden, it becomes deliberate. Every glance matters. If you look at episode 1, like I said, even when they were competing with each other quite heavily and looking into each other's eyes, it was very loaded, very passionate. And this was just before they even had sex. After they had sex, it was every movement, every touch was urgent, needed. Secrecy isn't a plot device, it's an engine in this story. The world is watching, careers are at stake, masculinity is on display, so desire has to be contained, and containment is what creates heat. I guess what I'm trying to say is what you can't have, what you have to hide, intensifies your need to have it. Now, because it's two men, I want to talk about homoerotica and explicitness. People mistake the two, and it really kind of annoys me. I know people get tantalized when you see two men kissing, especially if you're heterosexual or if you're attracted to men. It's hot. Or even if you're not attracted to men, the way these two men were kissing each other, the intensity of it is hot. But let me focus on homoeroticism. Homoerotica is not pornography. Pornography is about immediacy. Erotica is about delay. And that applies to homosexual erotica. It lives in anticipation, in denial, in the space between impulse and restraint. I go back to the first kiss. Shane wants to talk about it. Ilya wants, nah, there's nothing to talk about here. I want you. Do you want me? Heated rivalry doesn't rush to satisfaction, and I think that's what everybody likes about it. It lingers in obsession. That's why it resonates across cultures that understands restraint, restriction, across communities where desire needs to be a disguise. And then, of course, the African gaze, the last part of this commentary. The African gaze is not passive, and I want that to be understood. It reads between the lines. It notices what isn't said. It understands coded intimacy. So when African readers or watchers of this show engage with heated rivalry, they're not just consuming this romance. They're recognizing the familiar structure. Desire under surveillance, love under pressure, intimacy forced to masquerade as something else. That's not foreign, that is unfortunately familiar. And yeah, that's the end of my commentary, guys, which has gone on too long. I guess in my closing words, I would say what I love about heated rivalry so far is restraint. It resonates with me as an African because I come from as I've explained, I've come from a culture where that type of intimacy is taught. And I am not even talking about the homoerotic discussion or the homosexual discussion, which does not even exist because it's an abomination in my culture. I'm talking about the fact that sometimes the most powerful desire is the one that's not announced. For some of us, that story feels very familiar. Wanting something so badly, but you can't have it. You know, it plays into the forbidden fruit. And I think not just in African culture, anybody who's had to hide what they want, their desires, this will resonate with you. So yeah, the first episode I really enjoyed. It really got me into it. What I also love about this, and in a way, and I'm sorry to say this, in a way, the fact that they don't have a budget because they only have 6 episodes, it ties in quite nicely with the way BBC does its shows. Instead of blowing all that money doing 25 episodes and bloating out a story, because you are restricted, you have every minute counts. And I understand that it's not easy writing tight storytelling when you have a limited budget and a very short amount of time to tell that story. But I think it works in this case because the space in the first episode is okay. I can follow it. The 3 months later, the 6 months later is a bit shocking because I'm like, what? But I understand it as well. but it's your, like I said, you understand it. I think the fact that the episodes are short, not the episodes are short, they only have 6 episodes, and the urgency and the restraint of the series, it works very well for it. So I'm glad it's not a bloated pack. We don't need wasted scenes or extra context. We have enough. And yeah, so I guess this is for the readers, guys. What did you think of the show? For those of you who've watched it, are you motivated to watch it? I would love to hear from you. Did you read the book first? I haven't read the book, and I'm not going to read the book, I don't think. I think the show is enough for me. Did you find it romantic? Did you enjoy the rivalry? Or was it about desire surviving in silence? Let me know your thoughts. My name is N for Recaps. Please continue to like, subscribe, and share, and catch me on the next episode. Bye.